RIBBLE have just released a new bike called the Ultra, and this has some really unusual and different designs on it that we've seen from bike manufacturers. And this is really inspiring, coming from a company that basically has been a budget bicycle manufacturer in the UK, and now they're stepping it up to being a leader in the aero technology. So let's roll an intro and let's just have a look at this new bike, and let's just have a look at some of the designs on it and some of the claims they're making and what we think about those designs that we put on this new bike called the Ultra. Yeah, this new RIBBLE Ultra has some design features which we are really familiar with, which we've seen on a lot of other bikes, and it's also got some features that are pretty new that we've never seen before on a bike of this type. Now, typically the parts of that bike which we've seen before is the wheel being very close to the seat tube, and we have that sculptured out effect. We've seen it on a lot of bikes, and that's a pretty typical aero design. And we also can see that the front wheel is pushed back and it has a drop down tube which has been sculpted as well, so the wheel fits very close to the down tube. And these are pretty typically known as aero advantages, because when the air comes off the wheel or comes off the bike and it hits the wheels, then it's not being turbulated or interrupted. And the closer you can get those, we know from designs in the past that those designs really are aero advantage and have worked and have been adopted by a number of manufacturers. But this particular bike has some new stuff, and very much one of the real advantages to this bike is the handlebar design. Now, the handlebar design is basically revolutionary in the bicycle industry as far as a road bike goes, and what they've done is they completely redesigned the handlebar, so the brake levers are fitted in a different manner. It wasn't actually shown in the video that I watched how they do that. I'm not too sure how they fit them on, but what they've done is they've incorporated the brake lever and the handlebar all into one, so when your hand fits on it, it all acts as one component for the air to go around. And if you go to the center, more to the center of the handlebar has like a bulb in it, like underneath, and it has a very unusual design. Now, the CEO of RIBBLE are claiming that what that does is it causes a wake, and what it does is it reduces the aero drag on the body. Now, my aerodynamics is not that sophisticated to really understand how that wake would work, and I know Hambini's going to do a video on this bike pretty shortly, so it'll be interesting to see how Hambini does an analysis on the wake that will be coming off the front handlebars. So it's a pretty interesting design. But with these sorts of bikes that have revolutionary stuff on them, generally we've seen in the past that sometimes there's some flaws in these new designs, and that's to be expected. Whenever people have radically new designs, then it creates other problems. And one of the problems that I can see on this particular bike is when we go from the steering tube down towards the bottle, there's a very thin section and a thicker section. So what that's going to do is not going to make the force or the stresses across that whole tube even, because one part is going to be more flexy than the other. So it's going to, any flex in the bike is going to be towards the steering tube, which may interfere with the steering. And this was pretty common on the S5 when it came out. A lot of people complained about the way the bike felt when it steered. And you know, Cervelo in the updated models corrected that to try and remove that behavior of that bike. And I actually had one of the early S5s, and it did have a funny steering feel to it, that's for sure. It tended to get quite twitchy at speed. But anyway, that, I'm not saying this RIBBLE bike has got that, but that could be a negative to do with the bike. And one of the other negatives I can see, if you're the type of person that likes to climb and you like to hold the top of the handlebars, as we see even the pros do, to have a more upright and relaxed position, this is going to be pretty uncomfortable, because your hand's going to be around this new aerodynamic feature they've got on the handlebars that causes the wake. So that's just a few things that could really be the pros and negatives to this particular design. And unfortunately, when we have these new radical designs, we don't actually see the flaws in them until they actually get out in the market and people start using them. And then we start to see people say, hey, yeah, look, you know, with the Canon Aero, the seat's got a problem. Hey, look, the handlebar's got a problem. Now, that's probably the risk of being innovative in the bicycle industry. But it's really good to see that RIBBLE are really stepping it up from basically a custom, you know, just get a bike out of China type business that they were some years ago, to now a industry leader in aerodynamics.
One of the other areas that RIBBLE have worked on is the aerodynamics for the brakes, because they're running disc brake only. Now, it was interesting that the CEO of RIBBLE actually acknowledged that disc brakes are less aero than rim brakes, which I've been saying for like some time now, but obviously people challenge that. But when you got a company that's selling a disc brake bike and they're actually admitting the facts, that says a lot. Now, on to what they've done to... I've got a bit of a detour coming up here, so I'll just have to take it another way. Anyway, the disc brake, what they've done is they've made the down forks on the front of the bike in a way that they're quite thick, and the disc brake runs very, very close to the actual fork, and the caliper is hidden behind that fork. And they're saying that it gives a much more aero advantage and reduces the drag that disc brakes normally create. So it's another great feature that they've put on the bike to try and increase the aero advantage of this design. Well, I just got lost there for a moment, guys, with a detour. Anyway, back on track. Yeah, so the bike has some extremely interesting features to it, and I think this really throws down the gauntlet to a lot of other brands, and I think people wouldn't have expected RIBBLE to come out with something like this. And I think it's great because it pushes the boundaries, and I would actually like to see some manufacturers stepping outside of the UCI design and making some really go for it aero bikes, see what's possible in that realm. Well, anyway, guys, that's where I'm going to leave it, and I'll catch you next vid. Cheers.